Hey you guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be making these amazing gluten-free and oil-free maple donuts. These are so addicting. You're not just going to want to have one, and there is also a mukbang at the end of me trying them. So let's get started. So let's start with our dry ingredients first. That's going to be 1 cup of oat flour. And next up we have some vanilla bean powder. I'm going to use a half a teaspoon of that. And 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I like this brand because it's aluminum free. Next up we're going to use 1/2 cup of brown rice flour. And once you pour this in, you're going to mix all of the dry ingredients with a whisk. And once you're done with that, you're going to set this aside and we're going to get started on our wet ingredients. We are going to begin by making our flaxseed egg. And this requires 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed and 5 tablespoons of water. You want to make sure that you mix all of this up once you have it all together. After it's been mixed all up, you're going to let it sit for about 5 minutes. What this is going to do is allow the flaxseed to gel up. This way we have a binder for the rest of the batter. Next, you're going to add 1/2 cup of coconut milk. I really like this brand from Trader Joe's. A lot of times the coconut milk will separate from the fat. If you notice that happened, I'd add about a tablespoon of the coconut fat in there as well. Next up, we're going to add 1/3 cup of coconut sugar, and then we're going to mix this all up. I'm using a spatula here to kind of break down some of the fat from the coconut milk. And one thing you could have done is melted it a little bit beforehand, but I didn't have time to do that, so it's okay if you don't. Once that is all mixed up, we are going to add the wet batter into the dry batter. If you didn't melt the coconut milk, you'll notice that there are some of the fat pieces still intact, and that's okay. They should start to blend more together when we start mixing here. I'm going to speed this up a bit, but you get the point, and the texture that you want is going to be a bit thick like this here. Sometimes if I notice any other clumps, I just use my spatula to just mash them down, and that seems to work for me. This is what the finished consistency looks like. It's pretty thick. Now that that's finished, we'll get our donut molds. These are made out of silicone. I got them on Amazon. So there is 2 ways of doing this. You can either scoop the batter into the molds like this, which as you can see, the batter is really thick, so this is a little more complicated. Or you can do like what I'm doing here. I have a set of helping hands, my boyfriend holding a plastic bag open for me while I place all the batter in there from the bowl. This is very similar to piping icing or icing a cake with a piping bag. This is going to make it much easier for us to distribute all of the batter into these molds. I sped this up a little bit, but what it's going to look like when it's done is something like this. And you're going to want to make sure all of the batter is forced down to the bottom of the bag. And the reason that we're going to do that is so that we can cut a hole in the corner tip, and from there we are going to squeeze the batter into the molds. I sped this up a little bit, but basically you are going to fill them up as you see me doing here, and then I'm going to use a spoon to mash them down a little bit to make sure that they're nice and compact in there. What you just saw me doing was pushing down some of the batter in the bag to make sure I get all of the batter into these donut molds here, because we are making 6. And before I make that last one, as you can see, I'm mashing it down here. You don't want to fill them up too high or it can change the shape of the mold, because remember, these are going to rise a little bit. I'm getting all the batter pushed down to the bottom of this bag so that I can fill this last donut mold. And basically I just do the same thing with the others that I did with this one. Fill it up and then push it back down with the spoon, and these are ready to go in the oven. Here's a quick glimpse of my son enjoying all of the donut batter. If you're using the silicone molds, they'll be a little bit flimsy when you're picking them up, so just be careful. I placed mine in the oven at 350 for 30 minutes. And then I made sure to check it with a toothpick to make sure that it was all done. The toothpick was nice and clean, so I decided to take them out. Again, the molds are a little bit flimsy, so be careful when you're taking them out. Now these are going to be pretty hot, so I'd let them cool off if I were you. While that's cooling off, we are going to warm up our maple cream or maple butter, whatever you want to call it. So you can find this in the grocery store or you can make it yourself. This one is homemade. I have a YouTube video for this coming up soon. So I'm going to be eyeballing this here. We're going to use about 5 large tablespoons of the maple butter or maple cream. Mine looks really tough to handle because it's really cold. I keep it in the fridge. And I put mine in this little baby cast iron pan. It's perfect for heating up this maple cream, you're going to want to keep this on a low heat, otherwise this can turn into a candy texture. While we keep an eye on that, we're going to take our donuts out of the molds. And the great thing about these molds is they don't stick at all, so they come right out. I mean, look how beautiful they came out. I sped this up a little bit because you guys get the point. Mine were still a little bit hot, as you can see some of the steam, but I was on a time crunch. But I do recommend you waiting until they cool off a little bit more because they're easier to dip in the frosting or maple cream, whatever you want to call it. So here it is warming up. As you can see, the texture changes and it starts to get a lot more runny. When it gets like this, you can turn off the heat and continue to stir it, and that is going to let it cool down a little bit. You don't want to let it cool down on the stove too much, so go ahead and take it off and we're going to get ready for dipping. This is the texture that you want it to be. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, so we're going to have to work a little bit quick so that the maple cream doesn't dry to harden too fast. This is the method that I use to get a nice clean donut. I want the frosting to look really smooth on the top, so I let the drippings kind of fall, and then I use the spatula and swipe it, and then as it settles, because it's still pretty warm, it'll dry really nice and perfect. That one was my first one, so it wasn't the best one, but I'll show you a few more so you kind of get the hang of it. I made these a few times and this seems like the best method to get the perfect looking donut. If the maple cream falls in the hole, that is totally fine. It will dry in there perfect. You can put these on parchment paper too if you like, if you kind of get it a little bit messy for your first time. Depending on how far you want the maple cream or the frosting to go on your donut, you'll just dip it in much deeper. And if the maple cream or maple butter starts to get really thick, then just put it back on the stove for a minute or two, let it soften up again, and repeat the process. I just can't get over how beautiful they came out. And you'll notice as the other ones start to dry, they start to look like a maple donut. And what I mean by that is that the frosting starts to harden perfectly with like this matte look. And so you're going to do the same thing for all of the donuts and then let them cool off. Of course, you can eat them here if you're impatient, but we do have some leftover maple butter. So I like to put mine in a glass jar and leave it in the fridge until I want to use it again. You will want to do this part while your maple butter is still soft. If it got hard already, I would recommend definitely heating it up first so that it's nice and soft and pliable. Otherwise, it will be really hard to scrape it off of your pan. And that's pretty much all there is to it, you guys. Here are our maple donuts once they've dried and cooled off. They don't take long to cool off, especially if you cool them off on a wire rack. But I am obsessed with these, and so is my boyfriend. It's his new favorite dessert, and he asks me to make them all the time. This is them in some different lighting. Make sure you stay tuned for the mukbang afterwards, where I give you guys a review of how they turned out. Let me know if you guys make them, and I will see you guys in the next tutorial. Enjoy. Hey guys, so I actually don't have Kylie with me right now on camera this time for first, right? He's actually sleeping. Okay, well, anyways, so these are them. Like, look how good these look. What? Like, I didn't even know that I would be even capable of making something like this beautiful. Like, these look like professional ass little mini donuts, y'all. Okay. Oh, and y'all, I got a new cut too. Can't you tell my curls is popping? I don't have anything in them right now, but it's for another video. We're gonna taste these on camera. My favorite part. Okay, so let's talk about the donut real quick. So this is a gluten-free donut with a maple butter icing. And the only thing that this icing has in it is maple syrup. That's the only ingredient. Wow. Making maple butter literally burns hella calories because of how long you are stirring it, but it's so worth it. So worth it. Like, look at this. It takes on a whole different taste. Maple butter tastes exactly like the maple icing on a donut. The craziest part is I had no idea that that's what this probably was. But anyways, I feel like I'm talking too much. Let me just taste it. This one's the prettiest. We're gonna taste it. Okay. So the difference between my donuts that I made here, wow, is these are way more moist on the inside, like the actual donut. It's a lot more dense and not dry at all. And it's kind of like not as airy as a donut. So I feel like you can't probably eat a ton of these because maybe like after two, you'll be good. Anyways, I'll take another bite. Like, I'm probably gonna eat 2 of these and call it a night, but they're so good. Like, if I bring these to a party, people would think that I like bought these from somewhere. Again, you can probably see how dense it is inside. Like it's not, like I said, it's not super airy, pretty heavy, but they're so good. And I thought that like using the coconut milk was going to make it a little coconutty, but it didn't. It didn't give it that taste here. But you could definitely use like an oat milk or a different kind of milk. But the thing is, the coconut milk has a little bit of that fat in it naturally, so I didn't have to use any oils. That's what I love too, that this doesn't have any oils in it. The only natural fats that you're going to get from it are from the flaxseed, the flax egg, which is a great binder, which is what's keeping all of this together, as well as the fat from the coconut milk. Trying to see which one I want next. They're just so pretty. I don't even want to eat them. Okay. By the way, Kyrie licked the batter. He loved this. I think I posted in the video already, so you probably already saw it. Let's do this one. This one's so pretty. I like how it has that little drip. Anyways, wonder if you can hear me like eating it, because I'm gonna talk about the frosting next. So the frosting, I feel like the way that I frosted these, there's more frosting on these than a typical like maple donut. So when you're biting into it, the like softness but that like crunch from the top, it's very nostalgic. Because let me tell you guys something. A lot of the foods that I make, I haven't had those foods in years because I can't find brands or companies, I should say, that actually make healthy ingredient products. Like it's hard to find a good donut that's like not gluten free and not using like weird preservative or ingredients. I'm like one of those people that, although I'm vegan or plant based, there's a lot of other ingredients that are in that bubble, but I don't consume. For example, corn is vegan. I don't eat that. There are certain sugars, like beet sugar, I'm not going to use. Um, MSG, not going to use. And all these things that are like considered, plant based soy, I don't use, so there's a lot of these ingredients that I'm just like, yeah, I'd rather not like hound somebody on like, does this have this in it? Does this product have that in it? You know, and just make it myself. It usually tastes way better when you make it yourself. Do you know what's in it? Mm. I can't wait for everyone else to try these. They're absolutely amazing. Mm. Another thing that's cool too is maple donuts. You know how like the warmth from your fingertips, just like how like the maple donuts you get at the store, it starts to melt. And as soon as you bite into it, it starts melting in your mouth. Wow. Mm. And the crazy thing is, I'm not a huge sweets person, but my boyfriend is. I asked him yesterday, I said, is there anything I could do better like on this donut? He was just like, no, it tastes hella good, but one thing I would say is make a chocolate version. And I'm like, I just made us brownies the other day. But anyways, I would have loved to have Kyrie taste these. But right now, the way that he is asleep, I am not waking him up for this. Because after this, I'm taking my butt to bed too. But I'm going to save these for my boyfriend and Kyrie. Because Kyrie already loved the batter. I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. It turned out amazing. Anyways, I think that's all. I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. It's actually one of my favorites to make and do by far. I love it also because it's not fried. Like most donuts are fried, y'all. Like that's fried in oil. Yeah, no. So these are like a much, much, much healthier version. Thank you guys for tuning in and hanging out with me again. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe or leave a comment. All right, I'll see you guys later.